Uh,
I found them. Hello.
Hi,
Good to see you.
you too. Tanya asked it if it was okay to make it audio, and it is. Uh, but I was so happy you just showed up in video because I needed to see you. I almost panicked before, and I was just trying to dance and ground into the body and crying and yeah.
And what were you panicking for?
Um, it started this morning. I think it's because the topic I want to speak with you about is so important for me, and at the same time, it's just I just got these pictures from my childhood, when all this unconsciousness was going on among the grown-ups between the men and the women, and I have never noticed it before, but it felt so unsafe to witness that no one was kind of taking responsible for all this, and yeah, it felt unsafe, and then suddenly I just felt unsafe to speak out what I'm about to do. And I think that was it. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for explaining. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's not about you, because at the same time I was kind of laughing a bit because I have never felt so safe with anyone like I do with you discussing these things. So it was like I was having two parts of me kind of.
You were in conflict.
Yeah, I was. Ah, yeah. And now it happens what it always does when I'm with you lately. It's like all the questions I have, it's like they're gone. And that's kind of a mess when I'm going to do a podcast with you. Ah, Jesus Christ.
Well, it's
Ah,
important that you probably keep all of this part in, so
yeah,
understand if it gets really quiet for a period of time.
yeah, that's fine. I actually considered that because I started recording just before you came in. Yeah. Do you even know what we're going to talk about?
I have no clue.
You have no clue. I thought that.
I generally,
That's fine.
I generally have no clue about most things,
No.
so I'm fine to be a man.
Okay, that's fine. But I feel much more centered now. My body was aching as hell, but now I feel better.
Good.
Okay, I can do a bit of an introduction, like we are already started, but I'm so happy that you were willing to participate and do another podcast with me. We did one few years ago in 2020. And yesterday I was re-listening to it. And I got very touched by hearing it, listening to it, and somehow it felt like the perfect fundament to start this conversation off with. So if the listeners haven't listened to the one we did years ago, I would actually recommend listening to this before going further into this conversation. And yeah, I have been in your presence for like 5 years or so, following your work online and in groups and one-on-one, been in your women's group, and I have been kind of in and out of your space, and at the same time I've never left, I feel like. But your presence in the world and with me has just had such a big impact on my life. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm very touched as well.
I feel you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm also very grateful and also very touched. You know, there's a certain thing for a man where to feel your trust in me and to feel how a woman of your potency and your power, to have you consistently choose to come into the spaces that I'm holding and that I'm offering. I receive that, or another way to say it is my ego receives that as such a beautiful compliment. And
Mm.
you know, I'm endlessly touched, and uh, I feel safe in this
Yeah.
depth. I feel like I know you so deeply, and yeah, it's such a pleasure to feel you lean into the spaces that I offer, and then to go off and to do your life and to put things into practice. And I may not see you for a few months, and then you'll come right back into the
Mm.
space. It's been beautiful to watch you progress and just to live your life and to be alongside that and to be given the gift of being confided in is so touching for me as a man. It keeps me clear and it keeps me accountable and it keeps me within integrity.
Mm.
To have the support of someone like you. And that, you know, goes for any person that trusts me enough to spend some time with me. So I deeply appreciate your willingness to invite me to
Mm.
your space right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's like when I'm with you, I yeah, like I said before, my question disappears. And even though it can seems kind of not very polite, sometimes I don't even listen to your words anymore.
Mhm.
I just feel you.
Oh,
And from that felt sense, it's like my whole system understands what you're saying, and I remember who I am.
mm,
Um, and sometimes it's painful as hell, but it's also very freeing. And yeah, I can just see, especially lately, how much deeper I have connected to my daughter. And
mm,
that in itself is worth all the traveling. um, but also, I feel how much deeper I value myself. It was actually quite touching last night, being proud of myself in how I show up.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of tend to put myself down, belittling me, distrusting me. But I feel something is about, and maybe finally landing deeper in me. So thank you for that. What we spoke of just a bit the last time was kind of, as I mentioned, the fundament for this conversation. So how important it is to being able to stay present in the body and feel what's going on there, even in the midst of intensity and pain and deep pleasure. And how we are so disconnected from the body and our felt state, our emotions, and in many ways very immature in our emotional expression because we have been so conditioned. And how these two affects how we relate, how we go into sex, and how we relate to life. And coming back to the body and the felt state and to mature emotionally, to me, feels like when that's in order or in place or whatever, then sex will unfold totally natural on its own. And I have felt that my sexuality was a deep part of my essence without even understanding why. And I'm about to understand it more. But even though I know that if we can be in our body, if we can feel our feelings and navigate and connect through them with ourselves and each other, no matter how intense it gets, sex will unfold as it's meant to be, and it will open up, and there's so much potential for beauty and healing, and it's life affirming. All this, even though I trust that, I also feel an urge to speak about what's going on when people are making love to each other, because it feels like we are very prone to speak about, all the big disasters out there, Me Too, sexual abuse, and rape, all these big bad things all the other people do. But no one actually speak much about how we make love with ourselves and each other. And when I speak to people, I feel so much pain in my body, listening to their pain and to the disconnections and the shame and the fear they feel in lovemaking. And also, the subtle kind of abuses or limits that we cross on a daily basis with ourselves and each other, not because we do it on purpose or because we mean bad or want to hurt the ones we're with, not at all. Actually, almost the opposite. But because we can't feel our bodies and navigate our feelings, and we become so silent when it becomes very close to our inner world, it's like it happens all the time. And that's what I would like to speak to you about today, because I couldn't imagine any safer, more loving, honest person to hold that conversation with. And if any of what we are going to bring up tonight is resonating with the listeners or has any value, I would really invite them to take it in and start to embody it in their own lives, because it's great to hear about, to have an experience with us, but nothing will change until we start doing our own inner world. Yeah, and I can just see, even though I feel like, sometimes still a very young, immature girl, fumbling my way through all this intimacy that is so dear to my heart, I can just feel that when I allow myself to be exactly where I'm at and staying present, up until now, my experience is that it's always received, and it's always a ground for deep connection with the people I'm with. Yeah. But if what I shared is some of the experience you have too from working with a lot of people, your contact with people in this area, men as women, is way larger than mine is, would you like to share from your perspective, Chris, what the hell got wrong? How did we move so far from what is so natural within us to become so disconnected as we are today when it comes to lovemaking?
As I work with people and attempt to assist in whatever capacity I can, I've had to be very careful of the very easy to fall into trap of everything is messed up right now. We're all so disconnected. Where did it come? Because if I was approaching people from that perspective, I wouldn't be able to be of service to supporting any type of shift. So in my process, I've had to remind myself that there is purposefulness and lovingness and divinity in everything. Whether it's the most beautiful situation or the most heinous and sick situation, to understand that within the human experience, we're all moving collectively through many different types of weathering. We're moving through many different forms of tempering, where we're being challenged and we're being tested and we're being torn away from ourselves in order to be able to find our way back, because the gift and the lesson is within the finding our way back to what is truest, what is the most simple. I feel all the suffering is a gift, because without that, we never have any mechanism to grow or to develop or to transcend so deeply within the human experience that we can move so deeply into love collectively. And I feel right now, especially, I speak a lot about technology and how we are more disembodied and more distracted than we've probably ever been because of where our attention is consistently being pulled to. And on top of that, we're being offered this insidious gift of self-hatred, where most of the people that I work with on some level, and something I had to work through in my own process, was the conditioning of self-hatred, where something outside of us, whether it's a family member who is in pain and has been conditioned, whether it's an education system, whether it's a complete culture, but there's the programming of self-hatred that is being seeded in us. And when we hate something, to be feeling that, not only to be feeling that, but to be consciously listening to it, giving it space to be felt, and holding it up as the most beautiful authority figure in our life, our essence. When we're taught to hate our essence, we've nothing left to trust. And I feel that's where we are, is a deep conditioned level of self-hatred. So people are wanting to find the medicine to the suffering and to the pain, to the lack of intimacy. People are doing all these practices and are just trying all these things to heal. But it's very difficult if you're unable to feel your essence. Most people, I would say, most spirituality right now, a lot of the new age stuff, well-intentioned, is coming from a heady concept. It's coming from a logical perspective. It's coming from the idea of oneness, right? We can think about oneness. We can think about self-love, but do you feel it in every cell of your body to the point where you are deeply intoxicated by it? To me, that is the major difference. And that is what I attempt to not teach, but to transmit. I use words so the brain goes, oh, he's saying stuff. But eventually, I hope that once that person arrives to a certain place in their process, like what you shared at the beginning of our call, you don't even hear my words. You just feel me. And to me, that is intimacy. That is the part, that's the deepest part that I'm attempting to transmit to people, that I'm wanting to share with people. To me, that's not because I'm special. It's not because I'm some fucking guru who has all the power. That I don't want that. That is not me. My work here is to be as simple as possible, to be as ordinary as possible, and to do my work every day to fall deeper and deeper in love with that aspect of who I am. So then when I'm with people, just my being there is a reminder, and my words no longer matter. So the core issue of why people find intimacy so challenging is because they don't know how to get back into their body. They're having to wrestle with themselves. They're having to try to use the same tools that pull them out of their body, the same tools that have them chronically fatigued, pushing, driving, striving. They're trying to use those tools spiritually to come back into their body. So now they're pushing themselves in. They're driving themselves in. They're still trying to be in charge because they still think they're the one in charge. They still think their mind, which is fear-based, ultimately, the mind is clutching and grabbing and trying to fix things that is coming from a fear-based perspective. So it's a person's terror that's driving them, whether it's very subtle or whether it's very obvious. That's why it's challenging, because we're trying to apply the same tools that have really hurt us to our spiritual process. And the body is something that we have to allow come to us through stopping and putting down all of the behaviors and the thought processes that have us living in an experience of complete contracted fight or flight and neurosis. And this is where more and more I'm becoming so passionate about the power of intimacy and touch, specifically conscious touch as medicine. Because I can sit down with someone and just talk their ear off for 6 hours about intimacy, or I could ask them without saying anything, would you like to be held right now? Can I hold you? Can I invite you into a hug? Or that person is laying down on the massage table and I can just place my hand on their lower belly and say nothing else. That's going to be so much more nourishing and healing and supportive than all the most beautiful words and spiritual concepts. We are sensual-based creatures. We are electrical-based creatures, and every cell of our body informs every inch of our flesh. And when we feel locked out of our body and not sensitive, not sensual in our flesh, in our energetics, we go mad in our head. It's absolute madness that starts to come in, because we're dying. We're trying to find relief. So the body is the answer. Feeling is the answer. Resensitizing oneself is the answer. And I hear many people have the complaint of, oh, but Chris, I'm already too sensitive. You're not even in your body. So you're not sensitive. You're fragile. You're fragile because you've left your center. Fragility feels excruciating. But I really encourage people to not be confused by that aspect of feeling too sensitive. There's no such thing as too sensitive. That's like saying I'm too alive. I'm too blissful. I'm feeling too much love. What does that mean? No, you're agile and you're fearful. So you're contracting, and that does not feel pleasant. So once we can see the difference, then we can move into sensitivity from what I would call an empowered place.
I feel, sorry?
No, please.
No, I was just kind of feeling into it because it feels true in me. I have had a similar experience lately with you, where I had this feeling of me going around sensing all the people around me, trying to make everyone happy. And I kind of thought that was because I was so sensitive. But then I just have another experience with my daughter, and from the work I have done it's staying in my body. And I can't even explain it, Chris, but that day something shifted in me, that this was out of fear, what I experienced back then, and the interaction I had with my daughter, where we both felt and were in very intense emotion, but we still stay connected through our touch and our felt sense. And I think when you speak and when I feel into my body, that was the exact experience, that it's very different being sensitive, disconnected, and then really being in the body. Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense, but that has been a question on my mind as well, because I have heard, I don't know if you have spoken about it, but maybe in a conversation, that when it comes to our development, people tend to look at their sexuality as the last thing. It's like it's easier to go through all the other stages and then finally wait with sexuality. And I have just kind of wondered, why is that so? And then I went into my mind, and this week, when I have been spoken to a lot of people around this topic, I had this, because when you come to sexuality, you can't do that from your mind. You need to come back in the body, and that's the hardest part. You can fake it.
Totally.
A lot. So it's like now there's nowhere else to run than being. Yeah.
There's nowhere to hide, right? I've met people who've done so much work and just are so filled with pride because of all the things they know and the concepts and the practices and the courses and the workshops that they've done. But when it comes time to be in their body and to feel their sex, they're unable to do that. And the reason why it's so avoided is because it will hold a person completely accountable. Sexuality is, or sexual energy, our essence, is absolutely honest. You can't trick it. You can't pretend. It will show you exactly where you are. A person in sex, that is a magnifying glass for what's really going on in their life and for how they're really embodying themselves and how they're really showing up. Because what I say to people is, it doesn't matter what work or practices or teachings one has learned if they're unable to imbibe themselves. If you can't be in your body and feel your feelings and stay there, nothing else you're doing really is going to make any difference, but you're tricking yourself because you think you're enlightening yourself. You think you're growing, but you're just putting on more jackets. You're just putting on more noise. And I think it's beautiful you brought that point up, because now more than ever, with how easy it is to access information just by taking our phones out, I feel more than ever we need to be reminded of what actually matters versus what is just kind of pretty entertainment. And the other aspect of that is love. It's all about love. It's got to be about love. And love is terrifying because of how much it calls us to feel and to completely crack open into absolute authenticity. Love is absolute authenticity. And nowadays, people walk around priding themselves on how much they can close their heart and how independent they are, or they are, right? I'm an independent woman. Nobody gets access to this unless I say so. It's like, bravo. It's like, how deeply have you been hurt and abused, mishandled and manipulated to be convinced that you have to shut down the most powerful aspect of your being? And the same for men. So there's this thing right now where everyone wants to just be their own thing. And we all want to separate, or we think the more we can separate from people, the more we can just rely on ourselves, that it's a testament to our sovereignty and our spiritual maturation. Bullshit. We are community-based creatures. We need other people. We need touch to be healthy. Not be touched is to create disease. To not be able to lean into another person and to be expressive and honest and to feel your feelings and to feel another person holding you and being loving with you in that. To not have that is like rape unto oneself. Because you're stealing yourself from having such a healing and transformative experience. And we all deserve that. And in my process as a young man, you know, that's been something that I've worked a lot with. Right? I've had to work out all my self-trust stuff in relation to people because I was the lone wolf. I was that. And it served me beautifully for a certain period of time to get clear on certain things. And then I saw how limited it was and how the lone wolf archetype is riddled with fear. So I'm not sitting here from a stance of perfection, attempting to tell other people how to be. I'm just sharing from my own direct experience with myself and with other people. And I speak it as firmly as I do because I'm no longer interested in enabling or pandering to disempowerment, because that's what's happening right now. And we need to be held accountable to feel. That's love. If you've got someone beside you in your life, a friend, a partner, and you're not calling them on their shit, and you're just patting them on their head and going, oh yeah, well done, for all of that avoidance, right? If we're avoiding being real with the people in our lives, well, now you're not loving them. And we let people off the hook all of the time.
I relate to the part from, you know, I have been used to all of my life, kind of walking my own ways and taking care of myself. And then I walked into this self-development spiritual realm, and then they all spoke about, you know, you create your own reality, and kind of what you are is what you attract, and all this bullshit in a way. And I fell right down into it. It felt completely safe for me now, just being spiritual in the way that I was on my own and all this stuff. And I think the turning point for me was during COVID, where I got so pressed in all areas of my life, that I couldn't anything else than starting to claiming holding people accountable and asking for help and leaning in. And I kind of took another round last year when everything seemed to fall apart, and I even had some point where I felt, if this is what life has to offer me, then I'm out. Then I want to go home. And the moment I felt it, I had from my head the experience that home was where, not on this planet, wherever I came from. And somehow it didn't scare me. I had my daughter when I felt it, and she was scared, and I was kind of speaking to her, say, it's okay, I can be sad and take care of you at the same time. And then days after, I realized that this home I was missing was me. Coming home in me, in my body. Even though I work as a body therapist and I'm all into this, there was a part of me that was not home at all. And somehow it feels related to opening up for receiving help. So one part of me going very deep within, back home, and connect inside, but then also reach out, show myself real and vulnerable and needing help. Like, yeah, I don't know if it makes sense, but it resonates in me.
Yes.
And when you said that about touch, how much we need it, when I started touching myself, not to give myself pleasure or an orgasm, it felt so weird in the beginning. I did it only because someone told me to. And I was like lying there, and it was very awkward. But then down the line, I noticed that this touch of my own hand was almost more nourishing for me as food. It was like, yeah, I can't explain it. It helps me back home. And I think we all have had this experience of being out of ourselves and being in intense grief or anger or whatever, and someone just come and put their hands on your shoulder, and it's like, and this is what we can offer each other. And also in sex, how I think I realized when I started to touch myself and get used to my own touch, I realized that I maybe had never been touched so presently before by anyone. And I think that's part of the pain when people make love. That if you look from the outside, it might seem like people are intimate and naked and, kind of vulnerable or whatever, but we are not there in our own skin. And when we touch another person, we might, or at least I have been, and with people I speak to, that we are so much in lovemaking, also in a state of doing or performing, have to perform to get somewhere, to give pleasure to another person or to ourselves, that we are not really there, just in the beingness of it. I remember I was so conditioned in sex that that, you know, when we just hit off, it was about him and me getting an orgasm, him getting an orgasm, and then it was that. And I remember, yes, way back, I was with a man who at some point dared to take a break and just lay down and breathe with me. And I was just about to say, "What are you doing?" And then before I even got to speak, I had this rippling of pleasure moving through my whole body.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I was experiencing that by just being.
Mm-hmm.
I have been so focused on doing the right positions, doing the right techniques to get my partner to feel pleasure and come and have an orgasm. It never hit me that this might potentially disconnect him from himself and from me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it wouldn't even disconnect him from himself because he was never connected to you or himself.
To you. No.
Yeah.
But it's just in one side, I feel that this disconnect from ourselves and each other when we make love is kind of unconscious.
Mm.
But when I speak to people about it and put words into it, yeah, sometimes people are like looking at me and saying, "What are you talking about? I don't feel nothing. I never feel pain," or yeah. And then other people who dare to just stop and breathe and feel, they know exactly when they disconnected and why they did it. And maybe that's especially for women. I don't know, but when things got too intense or too painful, or yeah, she checked out of her body or faked an orgasm just to get out of the situation and not to confront the man with this uncomfortable feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And but lately I have also had men breaking down. It's like just feeling this longing for touch that matters,
Mm-hmm.
touch that doesn't need to go anywhere, just for the sake of the connection. And I don't know, you also speak about, you know, how we work differently, men and women, and how we as women are connected in our hearts, and you as men have your positive center in your genitals, and so. But when I speak to people, sometimes our pains and our struggles seems very alike in a way. I also hear men having the pain, feeling the pain of being with a woman who's not there at all, or not in their body, or also having experiencing with women whom they have experienced very aggressive and just in the state of wanting to have something or to be satisfied. So it's funny because it feels true when you say we work differently, and then when I speak to people, it feels like we all feel the pain of not being connected And then we can have all different types of reasons that disconnects us or why we disconnect.
Mhm.
But we all feel the pain of not being connected. And we also, which is also kind of new to me, both men and women have the experience of being touched in a way that we don't like,
Mhm.
but we don't speak up.
Mhm.
So it seems so crazy, Chris, that it's like everyone is feeling the same, but no one is saying anything.
Mhm.
Maybe because they are afraid to hurt the person they're with, or to
Mhm.
avoid the uncomfortability suddenly to speak up if they have been quiet for a while and never said that they didn't like it, and then suddenly years after, excuse me, but what we have done has not been that great at all. And I can see the challenge in that, needing to suddenly speak up when you have been very quiet.
Mhm.
But also it feels like a very misunderstood kind of, I don't know if even if I would call it loving, but we kind of trying to be nice, but that's not nice at all for anyone. And to me, it's not even about men against women. I see we all suffer. And how can we kind of come together and
Mhm.
support each other, no matter what our history with others or with each other has been?
The core piece here is our relationship with the truth.
Yeah. And what is truth?
Truth is whatever is occurring in the moment. Truth is whatever is presenting itself as reality as we're in the experience of it. What I say by our relationship with the truth is we've been conditioned and taught that the feelings that we have mean that we're not worthy enough, or because we have this feeling, the man isn't masculine enough, or he's not strong enough, confident enough. If he has this feeling or this subtlety or this insecurity, and the woman is too much if she allows what she's really feeling inside to be expressed. So this is the truth in us.
Mm.
This is just what's happening right now. And because we've been so distorted around it, now we attempt to come together in love and intimacy without ever bringing the truth into the room with
Mm.
us. So now we're trying to connect in a way that is false. And when we're trying to connect in a way that is false, well, now we need to work hard to try to connect because there's not much energy in falsity.
Mm.
So now we have to do a lot of friction. Now we have to go faster and we have to go harder with each other. And we have to kind of blow one another out. We have to chase some felt sense of relief. So we can exhale from the burden of living a life that is misaligned to truth.
Mm.
The truth is, this is how I feel right now. And when I feel this in my body, this is how my body moves. This is how my sound sounds. This is how I breathe. This is how I express myself. That's what the truth is.
Mm.
So all of our inability or our difficulty in connecting is because we have been told that the truth of us is wrong, is bad, but it's there
Mm.
and it's in the room. So what do we do with it? Well, we have
Yeah.
to come up with a whole host of abilities and techniques to stuff it down and to pretend like it's not there. which means that all of the aspect that we use to feel, which is our body, which is our flesh, which is our skin, which is breathing into ourselves, breathing into our muscles, breathing into our flesh. We have to stop all of that. And the more we become numb, the less we have to know that there's a truth here that's not being lived. So it becomes easier the number we become. And when people come together, it's as if people are wrapped in cardboard. And you can kind of feel something happening, but we have to push quite hard to feel past that wall of numbness that our body has created, that our fascia has created, that our center of our chest and our heart and our pelvis, all the gripping in our shoulders, all of that armoring stops us from feeling. And if we were to really go into those places, the truth starts to come up. And because we're afraid of the truth, and because we don't want to speak the truth, and not even necessarily my truth or your truth, I don't believe we have individual truths. We just have individual experiences of the truth. The universe is the truth. Oneness is the truth. The laws of polarity are the truth. You know, gravity. We could sit down and go, well, I don't believe in gravity, right? I prefer to identify as not being associated with gravity. So we were going into all these strange places where we're becoming more delusional and more diseased and more out of balance, because we don't want to look at the truth, and we don't want to look like how to, let me rephrase that. When we are severely disconnected and there's a lot of trauma and pain, which can be really excruciating, and I deeply empathize with people in that experience, in order to get back into a healthy relationship with the truth, with nature, with reality, it can be the most painful process that can take quite a long period of time in order to get back on good terms with the truth. And I totally understand if a person sees that path and goes, you know what? I've been through so much shit already. I don't have it in me to go through all of those things. I don't have it in me. I don't have the life force right now to expose more of myself to myself. So I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing, because fuck it. I'm going to make up my own truth. And I'm going to live. If that's what someone wants to do, I get it. And I don't see that person as being less than someone who's moving in the other direction. I just see it as someone who is deep in a human experience, like we all are. And in this moment in their life, they may not have the juice to go there. What I would encourage that person to do is find someone who's already went there, or find someone who's got a little bit more juice than you in the tank, and who knows how to be loving and present with you. Because that'll be supportive. It's really challenging. It's really tough being a human. We all have to move through intensely challenging experiences. It's a part of it. But being out of alignment with the truth, being numb, being walled off, being unable to come to intimacy in a present embodied way, all of this is actually going to create more harm in a person's energetic system, in a person's physical system, then the process of moving back towards the truth. And someone can just start really simply. Doesn't have to be complicated. They don't have to read 15 spiritual books. They don't need a guru. They don't even need to listen to anything you or I say.
No.
But all I would invite the person into is to start inviting themselves into being as authentic as they can in every single moment of their life. Meaning, to be authentic, you can only be as authentic as the level of yourself that you're in contact with. If a person is not in their body, is completely disconnected from themselves, and is brainwashed, and they're being authentic, they're only going to be authentic from the level of their conditioning. It doesn't mean it's accurate for them. This is why the process of a person feeling themselves as deeply as they can, feeling through their pain, feeling through their trauma, allowing themselves to bring their tears, to bring their screaming, to bring their breath and their movement, and building that relationship with themselves again, one of self-love, where they're allowing themselves to feel what they have to feel, to come back to feeling clear again. And in that process, they may have to press up against all of the brainwashing of, oh, if you feel that feeling, you're less worthy. Or if you feel that feeling, you're less attractive. I hear this from women a lot that I work with. One of their big fears of really feeling and expressing what comes up in them during sex is that it will scare the man that they're with, or that the man won't like it and he'll be turned off. Well, your job is not to be there to trick him into being turned on by fakeness. Most men have been sexualized in their mind to get hard, to get activated and turned on by that which is fake, vapid, and empty. So you do him a blessing as a woman by choosing to show up in your, maybe you would call it your messiness. I don't, whatever you would refer it to as your too muchness, which of course it's not. But whatever you call it, if you show up true in that, well, now he has to learn how to engage with the truth. Because most, as I said, are brainwashed to be turned on by what's false, by fake aspects of femininity. And women are trying their hardest to squeeze into those roles. So now she used to get more fake, more false, pump her face up, pump her breasts up, inject stuff into her butt, like a whole host of behaviors that are a form of self-hatred. So we both have to go first, from both sides. Men have to see the aspect of them that is attracted to false qualities. He has to go through the process of being present in his body and feeling himself and getting really, really still with the essence of himself and the essence of the woman that he's with. Why do I contract when she cries? What am I afraid of? Or what pressure do I put on myself from my relationship with my mother that tells me when she cries, I have to fix it? So now he feels burdened and he's just had a long day of work. So he's out, he doesn't want it. So now he disconnects. Right? These pieces go so deep. They're so nuanced also. but we gotta self-inquire.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, also have a lot of compassion and patience with ourselves, because I think there's a lot of out there right now is all about, oh, I have been through my process and I have learned from all my mistakes. So now I'm giving you the fast track. You don't need to make all the same mistakes as I did. So I've got this. You can follow my lead, kind of buy my course, take sessions, whatever, and then I can spare you kind of from the uncomfortable, painful experiences. And I'm like, what? What if that is exactly what we need to grow? It's like, because I have been so disconnected from my own power, I have been with a lot of coaches, a lot of therapists. I have been taking so many courses. And even with one like you, that is so embodied that I really feel our bodies speak together more than our minds. Even with you can't go the steps for me. I need to stay present with me. You can spare me for anything. What's going on with my picture? Ah, um, but with you, I'm kind of training. It feels like staying in the space of myself through the container or the beingness that you are. It's kind of I have your hand for a while while I'm training my muscles to stay with myself alone.
It's a reminder.
Yeah.
It's a felt sense reminder, and it's being held in love that is clean and safe. And that is very supportive. That allows us to feel the support of another person or other people. Because it's difficult for a person to develop when they're consistently only around people who are trying to drag them down into their own fears and brainwashings. So with me that you're going to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Everything out of love, and
Yeah.
likewise.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a two-way street. And that is a level of love and support that I feel is rare in the world.
Yeah, it is. And when we know that there's kind of no fast forward to where we want to be, and we need to kind of walk with ourselves every step of the way, whether we like what's showing up or not. And I think it's just so important to realize that in every engagement with a human being, it's like we're in the same boat. We are not on opposite teams. And how can we support each other and making a safe space, or have the compassion with each other that if you do something that I don't like, I can give you the feedback of how it feels and lands in my body, and you can take it in, and you don't even need to take it as your truth, and you can kind of feel into how it lands in you, and then you can kind of give me feedback. It's like, yeah, it's so needed that we support each other.
Yes.
And this is actually one of the questions I got from a couple I was speaking to about this conversation, that they can kind of, because of earlier experiences and being together in moment where they disconnect, and that has been kind of unsafe. She felt that she was shutting down and didn't know how to open up again. And because they also have this safe, loving space, where they're at least they're trying to communicate what's going on, he was kind of being, yeah, afraid to go wrong again, and then kind of blocked himself. And when was she ready for the next step? And when was she ready to open up again, and how can he support her in opening up again? So it's like, how do we support each other when we feel the one is locking down and maybe the other one is kind of tiptoeing and afraid to make it even worse? How can we support each other in situations like that, Chris?
Through self-empowerment first.
Mm-hmm.
This is where, because trauma and unconscious tendencies tend to want to merge and feed on one another in different people. So it really requires one of the people in the room to be so clear on themselves that they know that this is absolutely this is nothing that I have to do anything to.
No.
This is nothing that I have to fix. This is not even anything that I can make worse.
No.
As long as I'm being present. So as an example, I work with a lot of women, I also obviously men as well, but in terms of body work and energy work, I work with a lot of women. And a common fear, I guess, that a lot of women will arrive with before the session, they'll express at the start of the session, is, oh, you know, I'm just so closed and I've never really orgasmed, and I'm just so closed that, you know, I don't like feel like you'll be able to get me to open. And I have to remind her immediately that I am not here to open you. I'm not here to do anything to you. And I know, as a man who's clear on my way of functioning, I know my role in that scenario. And that's what I work with men on. So he understands his role, and he also understands on what has nothing to do with him. So let's say she lays down on the table. I'm just there. And I know that it will either be 15 seconds until she starts to explode into the orgasmicness of her being, or it may be 15 hours before she explodes into the orgasmicness of her own being. She is the essence that she is most deeply looking for. And all she requires from me is to be present and loving and patient with her, and to put absolutely no expectation on her. And for me as a man to be completely aligned with my own maleness without making any ounce of apology for that. So I can be in the room strong and firm and steady and grounded in love, refusing to accept any conditioning that she attempts to toss at me. Anything that she attempts to say, oh, you know, I probably won't open up in that spot because I've had this experience and that experience and that experience. I will go in one of my ears and it will go right out the other side of it. It's nothing to do with my way of loving her. I am in no way there to limit her capacity by taking in that conditioning and then projecting it back onto her as truth.
No.
I don't agree with what she just said, because I know underneath that is a deeper level of her consciousness, that if I can love her there, that if I can touch her there and stay with her there, that's the aspect of her that starts to vibrate and start to spill up to the surface. That's how I can be supportive. But in terms of your question, you really gotta have some grounded understanding of self, and also realizing that almost zero interference is needed in the other person's process. We've been taught to babysit one another.
Yeah.
We've been taught to enable one another. So as soon as we can break that, as soon as we can choose to not try to feed the kind of ooey gooey ouch, poor me, I'm scared, all this victim energy that right now in the world we're really celebrating, and we're really more of it, right? We got cancel culture, which is the biggest expression of that spoiled brat victim consciousness. I don't like that word. Let's ruin that person. It's so distorted, it's so dysfunctional, it's so immature that we're breeding whole generations of people who are terrified of the truth, who are terrified of realizing that life is challenging and it's not always going to be something we like. But how can we show up lovingly? How can we meet the challenges? And how can we not take everything so personally? And what I want to bring it back to in relation to both people coming together. The woman, she has her role, which is be in your body. If you cannot be in your body, stay compassionate, stay patient, and continue to be in your body as much as you can. That is your responsibility until the end of your time here. As a man, I am not here to make you be in your body. I'm not here to make it be easier for you to be in your body. As a matter of fact, me sitting in the room with you as you're being in your body will probably be way more uncomfortable for you than you being alone in your body. So I have to realize that it's challenging, it's tough, and that's okay. And we have to honor the feelings that start to come up. The bridge from both people being accountable, the bridge in that is our communication, is our ability to express to one another what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing inside of me when you behave like this, what I feel in my body when you say that or when you do that, and then to receive the other person's experience also and allowing it. But communication is the bridge. And I find when I work with couples, so many relationships break down because both people have all of these assumptions about why the other person is behaving the way they're behaving and what the other person is feeling and what the other person is thinking. They have all these assumptions that then they live by. But they've never actually asked the person if this is true.
No.
And assumptions ruin relationships. Because then both people are in two completely different relationships. Because the assumptions are different movies. I hope it's clear the way that I'm expressing it, but again, the authenticity piece, communicating, talking, expressing the things that you really feel that may be very painful for the other person to feel or for the other person to hear. Maybe it will trigger insecurities. Maybe for the woman to say to the man, hey, when you're in your like poor me, victim-y energy, I dry up inside and I don't want to have sex with you. I'm not attracted to you when you go into your little boy wounding. That can be really hard for a man who is in that wounding to hear.
Yeah.
For her to hide it from him, now she's doing the biggest malfunction. She's hiding reality from him, and she's not reflecting him back to himself accurately. So now he's never going to shift.
No.
So we have to be honest with one another, even if it's scary and challenging and overwhelming. Truth will set you free.
Yes, that's true. And I have a question that kind of relate to that, because some of the women I work with, even though they don't come to me in regards of troubling in their sexuality, the more they land in their body, it kind of comes up. And one said to me, you know, after I've been here and I feel my body more, and it's kind of, I don't want to have sex the way I used to have.
Of course.
I want more, much more slower, much more kind of my whole body, not just penetration like I've been used to. But I'm kind of scared that, are there any men? It seems very lonely. It seems like all the men wants just the hard, the fast, the everything. And I can agree with her at some point, because I have considered these thoughts myself through my own journey. But I, again, also from my experience with the men, it seems like they have the same longing, but no one dares to speak it out loud. So just to have the reflection, again, like you said before, to communicate honest. It might be that they actually didn't knew it was a possibility, or that she would like it, or yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Men think they have to work really, really hard
Mm,
and be sexually aggressive with her in a way that is actually perpetuating more abuse onto her.
mm-hmm.
So many men, not all men, of course,
No, not all.
many men, this is just the norm for them.
Mm,
They think the harder and the faster they can go, the more she's going to enjoy it. And a man
mm,
wants to please the woman that he's with, and he will go to whatever lengths he can to
mm,
achieve that,
yeah.
even if it means behaving in a way that is not actually of love at all, that is not
Mm,
actually of connection. Men are some of the softest creatures that I've ever met.
yeah.
Men have beautiful hearts. Men are so loving. Men are so caring. Men
Mm,
want to please everyone so he can get the reflection of himself. Doesn't mean it's healthy. But all men really want to do is to feel powerful and to feel
mm,
valued and to feel like he matters. And generally, most of the men that I've engaged with are just trying to figure out how to do that in a way where he's not compromising himself. So women really must be transparent of her experience and what she's feeling, and go to him, hey, breathe a moment. I'd love for you to
mm,
slow down and just connect with me. And
mm,
baby he gets confused. And he's like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know if I want to do that. But if she just lets that go in one of her ears and out her other ear, like I do,
mm. Yeah.
she doesn't have to take that in. She doesn't have to try to be anything for him. And instead, she can start to pull him into her well of love.
Mm,
Women just have these wells of love. They have these webs of love. If she's really truly embodied in herself, and she knows her relationship with how powerful her love is, and she can take a hard, numb man who is totally disconnected, and she can just pull him in like a riptide, like a current in an ocean, and just start to water him and just start to caress him and start to pour love into him and kisses into him. And she can touch his heart from the front, and she can touch his heart from the back, and she can bring so much love to that man that that man is now imploding inside, that he's releasing all of this wounding in him. And that's terrifying for men. But a woman's love, when she refuses to be what society is asking from her, because she sees how disempowering that is. She sees the trick and she says, I'm a no to that. Instead, I'm going to sink deeper into my exquisite womanhood, and I'm going to start to love him in ways that he has never experienced in his life. that will transform his entire experience of himself as a man. In order for her to do that, she has to be fully self-accountable in healing all of her own disdain, hatred, and judgment towards the masculine, towards men, for all the ways that it has harmed her in the past. If she can never move through that healing, she'll never be able to love a man, because she'll always just be pulling at him and poking him and trying to punish him for her past with men. Never stands a chance with her. So this really is the woman's work, and it can trigger a lot of women when I share this. I don't care.
The part that she needs to be responsible for her own experiences, or
you respond, because there's this mechanism that happens when we have had something abusive or unloving done unto us. There's a disempowering tendency that wants to feed itself by blaming the external world, rather than understanding that I understand the blame, I understand why, but in my heart of hearts, do I really believe that me blaming men or me blaming women is going to bring me to a state of love and health again? It won't. At a certain point, we have to be willing to come to the acceptance of that, take it inside, and start to go through the healing in ourselves, and let everyone else off the hook. And again, this can be very triggering to hear for people who are in the experience of having something diabolical done to them, right? I empathize. I work with women who have been sexually abused and raped for years, like in the most horrendous experiences. And still, I have only seen true healing arrive to that person when they have become fully accountable about, okay, I have a lot of disdain in me towards men because of my past experiences with them. Firstly, that is okay. Secondly, it is allowed to be here. Thirdly, I get to feel all of the grief and the rage that I'm carrying in my body. I get to feel that, and I get to be witnessed in that by safe men or safe women. But I am the one who is responsible to clear it so I can come back into an alignment of love. And that can take years, or it can take days, or it can be immediate, just in the process of choosing to be responsible. Otherwise, we will always subtly and unconsciously blame the other, our partner, and the world, and God for our experiences. That victim consciousness will never bring a person to heaven. So
no, and that goes for men as women, right? Because I see the patterns in both genders when we go into victimhood.
Totally. And you know, it's not just women who've experienced these deep atrocities.
No.
It's just that men's externalization tends to be more brutish. It tends to be more physical. It tends to be more, you know, extreme and out in the world. Whereas ways that men have really been just torn apart by women has been so much more subtle, calculated. Women are deeply intelligent socially and emotionally, and she can use that to just, you know, I'll work with partners, and in some situations I have to go to the man and say, you're in an abusive relationship
Yeah,
here. You don't know
exactly.
that because society says you're supposed to just deal with all of this because you're the man and you're the problem. But, you know, it goes both ways. And a lot of the work
Yeah,
I do is to assist him in coming back into a loving, healthy relationship with women because he himself has all of his own pain and his anger towards the fact that he was laughed at for telling the woman when he was 12 that he thought she was pretty. You know, he's
mm,
been humiliated, he's been publicly shamed. Men carry a lot of fear and abuse also
yeah.
from so ideally we
Yeah, but
all
that's what I experience too, because I have both men and women. So
yeah
I just see it from both sides. So there is a tendency kind of making women the victim and men the perpetrator, but I just also see that it goes both ways.
yes yes and an even deeper aspect of that, which I always like to speak out loud for people to feel into what it means for them.
Mm,
There is this narrative, as you mentioned, where men are the problem.
mm,
Even women who come to me when I'm working with them or I'm in groups, classes, or workshops, there can be this collective environment of almost this like upper class entitlement where the
mm,
feels like she's already done, she's good, she's
mm,
like waiting on the men to do their work.
mm.
It's very damaging because
Yeah,
it's into a massive blind spot that she has. And also this kind of collective complaint of, you know, when men are so far behind, when are they going to do their work? When are they going to really heal and do these things? And why do these men keep growing up to be the same types of men? And I have to remind these people that who are raising our young boys?
mm.
Women.
Yeah,
And it doesn't mean it's right, but it was never intended for a woman to be alone raising a young man. But even in households where there is the father,
mm,
he's so confused and he's so lost in his own self, he's so distorted in his own masculinity that the woman in his life continues to perpetuate abuse not onto him, but also all of her disdain for the masculine gets plugged into her son. And he grows up
yeah,
to carry that out in his life. So we really have to look, both men and women have to be mature enough to look in themselves and ask themselves, where is the disdain that I'm carrying for the opposite? Because we don't want to be at odds. We want to be on the same team. We want to come back to
mm,
the realization of, firstly, how different we are and how beautiful those differences are to one another. So it's a lot of these types of conversations that I feel are required to open up the awareness of things that may just be pushed to the back of our awareness because
mm.
trauma is wanting to get fed.
Yeah. Yeah, I very agree on this point because there's a lot of that out there. Chris, I see that time has been running. I haven't kept an eye on the time, really. I'm sorry for that. If you could answer one question more, would that be okay?
Sure.
Because we have been talking a lot and we both agree on the importance of reconnecting with the body and how important touch is. And also that this whole journey, however it might seem messy in our relationships, it starts with us. and one needs to go first. And I also know that you speak a lot of this, that the woman needs to connect with her heart and her ability to love, and the man to his genitals and his ability to bring consciousness and clarity and kind of clean up the mess, or at least shine a light on it. And we have both those qualities inside of us. But if you should, in a practical way, inspire a woman through her felt sense and her own touch to connect on a deeper level with herself, and the same with the man, how would that invitation sounds like for the men and for the women to connect on a physical felt sense? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yes.
Mm.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a big question, I know.
Yeah. I mean, I could do a whole 1 week workshop on that one question.
I know, but it's simple. I think the answer is simple, but the process of it is kind of what takes time, right? You can go do your thing. Put
Yeah, well,
1 week, 1 to kind of 5 minutes.
oh, where do I even begin? One thing that is helpful is for that person to be around another person who's already embodying this information. That's the easiest.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
right? So if whoever's listening, if you know a person in your life, or you can go into the spaces that a person who is embodying this has created, that is going to be the most helpful, quickest, supportive, and immediate way to support you on that unraveling process.
Yeah,
On that.
I agree.
And also with that, only changing most of your life. So only changing most of how you live your daily life. I say only as a joke because ultimately I'm saying that maybe everything has to shift, because maybe everything that you have set up that fills your days has been set up from the posture of unconsciousness and trauma. So you may have to look at all of that. But to simplify it, self-pleasure practice for women, being in the body, laying down every single day, having space where she's not being in her mind, where she starts to bring herself down into her body, where she feels her toes and her pelvis and her breasts and her nipples and her shoulders and her back, and she can breathe and feel and express and move her body and dance and celebrate and sing and just be in the very earthly types of experiences. So her yin, her water, her femininity gets nourished, so she can move out of fight or flight, so she can give all of the tension that's bracing in her head, that's potentially creating neurosis in her, so she can start to feed the soil, so she can start to feed her earth in her body. That's the most basic way, if she can plug in that throughout the day.
Can I just add something to that part?
Yes.
I don't know if it is because I'm Danish and I hear the word differently, or if it's just because of my conditioning around what self-pleasuring is, that I connect this to orgasm. But when I was giving that exercise years back, it took me so long time to understand that self-pleasure didn't mean to orgasm. It could also just be lying in the grass, opening to my senses, and just having my body relax and feel safe. That took me some time. So if that could be helpful, I just needed to put it out there.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I missed that point, so I appreciate it. The biggest point of self-pleasure is that she is not chasing or striving or trying to make anything happen in her experience. She's simply feeling and being with and dancing with what's there, whatever it may be, shifting into. But there's no expectation that she's placing on herself. Yeah, she's being in the wave of it.
Yeah.
That's for the man, creating spaces in his day where he has time to listen, where he can sit somewhere, whether it's meditating or it doesn't even have to be called meditating, but he's present in his body. He brings his attention down into his body, feeling his legs, feeling his pelvis, checking in with how he's feeling, maybe taking some deep breaths to support himself feeling, and then using and utilizing that time and that silence to start to listen to what's going on inside of him. It's also very important that a man can start to become very clear on the motivation behind his actions in his life. Why am I going and doing that today? Why am I saying what I'm saying to this person? Why am I working another person's job? What, anything that feels weird to him, questioning himself on it. Most men have just been enslaved. And then they're told to work, just work, put your head down, get on with it. Make someone else money while you make the bare minimum. And never really question anything. That's a big aspect of what I feel men are really lacking right now. There's so much insanity that's going on the planet. So much stupidity, so much foolishness that's being fed to us as rules and laws and structures. The man has to be brave enough to question that in himself and go, do I agree to this law or to this authority that is just deciding it's putting itself onto me? As a grown man, you don't need to have a fucking president. You don't need to have someone telling you when to wake up, what to do, when to go to work, when to use the bathroom, when to eat. You don't need an authority figure. The man's spiritual process is realizing that he is his own authority figure unto himself. So now he has to examine his entire kingdom, his entire landscape of his life, also of how all the people in his life feel. Because everyone in that man's life is going to be reflecting information back to him. It's very valuable for a man to sit back and start to listen to his environment. It's especially valuable for a man to sit back and be able to witness and listen to the woman that he's with, or the women that are in the space. Let me clarify that. To listen to intelligent, embodied women who are accountable and do their work, because she's going to be so much deeper connected to the soil than he will be. He's going to be more connected to consciousness and spirit by default. So for him to tap into the earth, for him to get down next to the ground and put his ear to the ground, he can do that with woman. He can do, once she, of course, as I said, is not completely suffocated by insanity and neurosis. She has to have some aspect of processing that has happened for her to be safe to listen to. So he has to figure that out. But it may look like historically that men lead. Sure, we build the houses and build the sewers and build the structures of everything and create all the things that fly in the air and drive on the roads. And there's so much externalization that men do because we're so fucking amazing at it. We're so beautiful at that aspect of life. But if a man is not leading through the listening to the feminine principle, that which he creates is potentially going to be anti-life and only here to serve his distorted desires for power. So for men, listening, cultivating the ability to listen to himself, and when I say himself, that means questioning everything in his head that he's been raised on, that he's been conditioned with. Listening to himself, starting to feel into and listen to his creator, whatever God is for him, listening to his woman's body, to his woman's heart, to his woman's words, sometimes, depending on where.
Not always.
Definitely not always, but he's got to discern that, right? He's got to discern, and he has got to remain firm in the decisions that he consciously chooses to make in spite of the complaints around him. This is another very important piece, is as a man starts to clarify himself and starts to make conscious decisions that are really in alignment with himself, his creator, and the greater collective, which is love, ultimately, there may be a lot of distorted projections from people who are very wounded coming at him, telling him he's wrong, he's not allowed to do that, he shouldn't do that. That can trigger the little boy in him. Versus awakening the conscious male in him. So as an example, for a man, if he makes a decision and he's getting a conflicted reflection, or there's a complaint or a criticism, as a man, it's very important that he really sits and listens to that inside of himself to see, okay, is there truth in what I'm receiving from this person? Is there an aspect of truth that I need to look at, that I need to work on, and an area that I need to mature even more in to be even cleaner in my life? Or realizing that the projection he's receiving has nothing to do with him, but instead it's a traumatic response that's coming from, let's say, in this perspective, a woman in his life who has been so distorted by what I call Disney programming, fairy tale programming, that she's sitting there going, you're not giving me what I want. You have to give me what I want. So you're not allowed to do that because I don't like it. And you're stupid and you got to give me what I want and what I think I need. Right? There's a lot of very childish energetics out there in the world. So it's important that the man can decipher the difference between I do not fucking consent to whatever you're put on me right now. I am a firm no to that. And let me tell you why I'm a firm no in love, versus, oh, that stung what you said. I think there's probably some truth to that. That's painful for me to admit as a man because my male ego doesn't like it. But I'm going to sit with it and really feel what is valuable for me to learn right now. So that was a 5-minute response in 25 minutes. And it's nuanced, Tanya. It's so nuanced because
I know.
everything I've said could also be seen as toxic. Everything I said could also be seen as beautiful and enlightening, depending on who's receiving it and where they are. And this is where it gets so messy. And this is why we need each individual to go inside and to understand the authority of their own being so they can stand up strong and firm and in love, even in the face of conflict and challenge and criticism, and hear it and take it in and either declare, no, I do not consent to that, or I hear you, there's some truth to that, and I need to work on something deep in me right now. But there's so much distortion, there's so much disconnection that it's so nuanced. It's so nuanced, and there's no right or wrong answer. There is only what is deeply aligned to you and what is deeply aligned to me. And when we come together, hopefully I can sit and hear what's aligned for you and not tell you you're not supposed to be in that, and love you in that. And you can hear my version, even if it's different to what you believe. And you can go, oh, I hear you on that. It's beautiful that you're so aligned. I don't agree with it, but we all get to be who we are, and we get to love one another and be patient and compassionate with one another in spite of the differences. Yeah. That is the most important piece.
Yeah, it's the important piece, and it's also the challenging piece, but that's why we do this work, because we mature along the way, I feel, and it gets easier along the way. The more we know ourselves and trust ourselves, it's much more easier to have people have their own path. At least that's why I love the body work so much, because I just trust. I have lost trust along the way, and I have gained trust again, but I do truly believe that if we want to, there is nothing that we don't know. We might run from it, we might not like to hear it, we might not be ready to hear it, but if we take our time and listen within, we always know when we are off course and when we're right on spot. No matter what everyone else says.
Yes.
But to me, that has been a long process, and it's still ongoing. But it's just like, I will never ever anymore give into that there's someone that don't know something because of their traumas or their childhoods or their whatever. I can feel compassionate, and I do hold space for all of that. But when we really go inside, there's nothing that we can gain access to that is of importance of our lives.
Yes.
And I try to hold myself accountable for it, but I also hold people around me accountable for it, because I do trust the wisdom so much within. Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. We took none of my questions. It's like that was the same as the last time. The first question I asked, and your answer, I lost it there.
Get it together.
Yeah. But I love everything about it, and I cannot recommend being in your space enough, men as women, because I have had men close to me working with you, and I have been around the women in the groups, and just seeing how it not only affects their lives, but also are spreading out, especially for the children.
Yes. Yes.
That's, I'm touched to tears many of the times, because this is how we change the world. It's not what we say, it's they feel it through us.
Mhm.
So they listen to how we engage with each other, how we talk about each other.
Mhm.
So I really hope for my daughter and the children, and yeah, that they have healthy role models. And I really see things shifting. There's a lot of things are going very fast in the good way, I think. I really see people waking up, or yeah, having this enough is enough. And it feels good.
Beautiful. Yes. Well, thank you.
But really, yeah, there are many ways to be in your space. I gained a lot just from listening to your podcast, but there's also the Patreon community you have, and the men and women's group work, and one-to-one. So there's no excuses to be in your space. It can be fully free, and it can cost some money, but it's worth the investment, I really think.
Thank
So
you.
I'm just honored that you spent some time with me, and grateful that you hold space for my tears and my fears and my everything. So I think I'll just let it all out there, and people can get a feeling of it. So thank you.
Thank you. I love spending time with you and talking about these things and transmitting from this place. So thank you for having me on, and I look forward to our next conversation. And now my voice is gone, so I'll be silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm tired, so we are both done in in our own way.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Tanya.
you. Yeah. See you.
Bye.
Bye.